Today's podcast is sponsored by Barrage Coffee. I'd like to thank Kyle Early and his crew for sponsoring it. It's veteran owned and operated, so thank you, Kyle. Today's guest is Jacob Mack. First off, I want to thank you for your 6 years of service to our country and dedicating your Saturday for coming on my show. I can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege. I was looking forward to it all week. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, man. So you grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut. I know you lived in different places, and we'll get to them. What was it like growing up there? And if you want to go through what the other places you grew up before you moved to Waterbury, that'd be cool too.
Yeah. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. My dad was active duty Navy when I was born. So lived in Charleston for a couple of years. And then I actually moved to Fresno, California, and lived in Fresno for a few years. And then I went to Connecticut when I was like 8 or 9 years old, something like that. And grew up in Connecticut until I enlisted in the Army. I'm one of four. I've got 2 brothers and a sister. I'm kind of in the middle. I've got one older sibling and the other 2 are younger than me. But I had a pretty, standard childhood. I was a real rambunctious kid. I ran around with my brothers a lot. I was outside all the time, really into martial arts, really into sports, stayed super active. And I actually, ever since I was, maybe 5 years old, I would always tell my mom, I'm going to join the Army when I get older. I always knew that was what I wanted to do. And it was my focus growing up. I always loved like camping and survival skills. And I was always watching like military documentaries and studying history. And I was kind of a nerd that way, but I knew what I wanted to do. And I guess it paid off in the long run. I was very well prepared when I joined the Army. I knew a lot of things already, like first aid and survival skills and building shelters and camping and stuff. I was already like ready to go on all that stuff. So it was good.
That's awesome, man. We'll get to your career here in a second, but Did you do any hunting, fishing, played sports or anything in high school, or was it just playing out in the woods trying to be
No, I was a big athlete, and I did do definitely some hunting and fishing. My grandpa was a fisherman. He was it was his lifelong thing. He even ran a store out in California for a little while where he made his own bait, and he was like selling bait to all the fishermen as they went out every day.
Really?
That was his passion. So I have a lot of memories as a kid going out to the lake super early. He'd roll me and my brothers out of bed at like 5 a.m, and we'd be all like, "Oh, what are we doing?" And we're like, he throws us in the truck and takes us out to the lake. And it was, I miss those days. When you get older, you realize how much those memories mean to you. And I was a big athlete too. I played soccer, lacrosse, wrestling, basketball. I was really into martial arts. I did Taekwondo ever since I was a little kid, all the way up until high school. And I got my black belt in Taekwondo, actually. And then I wrestled in high school. And then after high school, I started doing like Muay Thai and boxing and jiu-jitsu and getting into MMA. And I was actually fighting competitively for like 9-10 years. I was fighting all around the country. I fought in Massachusetts, New York, Washington. Out here in Washington State, I fought a couple times. So love martial arts, love the competition. That was a big part of my childhood for sure.
Just kicking ass, man. That's
just
awesome.
Kicking ass. Absolutely.
Okay. For the listeners, you joined the military at a very young age, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And you got an interesting MOS. I don't know much about it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I didn't look too much into it. And I wanted to save it for you to describe to the listeners what your MOS was and what it entails. Because
I'd love to.
Really intriguing.
I loved my job. I would love to talk about it. I could talk about it all day. My MOS in the Army was 35 Mike, Human Intelligence Collector. Human Intelligence is the abbreviation for that is HUMINT. So if I say HUMINT, that's what I'm referring to. But that whole job field is really focused on collecting intelligence information from a human source, whether that's debriefing another soldier or an officer about something that they experienced, or interrogating a captured militant or enemy combatant, or, analysis, battlefield forensics. There's a lot of different ways that we collect information, but as long as it's coming from a human source, it goes to someone like me. There's other types of intelligence information too, right? Like you have signals intelligence, SIGINT, which is like, intercepted communications and things like that. You've got geospatial intelligence, geoint, all these other things that fall, depending on what type of intelligence it is, it falls under a certain category. So HUMINT is all things human. A lot of what I did in Afghanistan was like interrogations and debriefings, collecting information from people who were willing to volunteer information. It was a very diverse job. It was very, very fast paced, but I loved it because it had a huge focus on interpersonal skills, interviewing skills, just like this, communication, psychology, learning how to build a relationship with someone on the fly, identify ways that you can help each other, and then use those as kind of incentives to like, hey, you help me, I help you type of a deal. It's really fascinating. It was almost like a science for me. You're studying something new all the time. It's not something you can just master. You read the book, you're a master of it. Okay, cool. There's always more things to learn. And that's what I loved about that job the most, is that you can always get better at something. You can always learn more. Yeah.
Would you use? Would you try to like be their friend to get information out of them? How or building that relationship?
That's definitely a tactic. Yeah. What's interesting with interrogation tactics is that it's completely unclassified. You can actually Google it. Anyone at home, you can Google U.S. Army interrogation techniques, and you'll find all of the training that we go through. It's part of the Geneva Conventions after World War II. They established these legal criteria that say, if you're interrogating a prisoner of war, you can't do this. You can't threaten them. You can't hurt them. You can't deprive them of, food and water, things like that. So when you go into an interrogation, we still have to abide by all those laws. And even in Afghanistan, where we're not necessarily interrogating a fellow soldier, we're interrogating a militant, a combatant, right? A guerrilla fighter. So sometimes, soldiers get frustrated because they're like, we have to abide by all these rules, and they don't even abide by them themselves. Well, we hold ourselves to a high moral standard because we're the United States Army. That's what we do. So we don't lower our standards just because the enemy maybe isn't using them. So there's a long list of techniques that we're trained on in interrogation school. Some of them are centered around that focus of, I'm going to befriend this guy. And some of them are a little bit more aggressive, where you're kind of saying, look, this is the situation you're in. I'm not here to be your friend. You're up against a wall here. You're about to get transferred to an Afghan prison because we have this, and this evidence against you. You're not going to see your wife. You're not going to see your kids. You kind of paint the picture for them, and they start to realize, oh, so you can be friendly about it. You can be not so friendly about it. There's definitely different ways to go about it. And the interesting thing is that everyone's different. So every time you go into an interview or an interrogation or a conversation with someone, you have to strategically align the way you're going to communicate with them with your objective. So it's always different. And that's what I really loved about it, for sure. It keeps you on your toes.
How long was that school?
It's like 6 months of training after basic training.
Really?
But honestly, you get out of the schoolhouse and you get to your first unit and you realize, I don't know anything. I still have so much to learn. You learn a lot on the fly, and you do a lot of unit training is everything. I mean, once you get to your unit, it's like when the real training begins, because then you have all your NCOs that are experienced that are like, oh, you really need to know how to do this, and this, and you're training every single day.
Now, where was your first duty station, if you don't mind me asking?
It was actually Fort Lewis, Washington, and I did pretty much my entire career at Fort Lewis. Training is down at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, down near the border. It's out in the desert. It's hot down there. There's not really much to do except train every day. So it's a good place for an interrogation school. So you finish your training down there, and then you get sent out to your duty stations. And I got sent up to the 201st in Fort Lewis in Washington State. I was there for about 9 months and then was deployed to Afghanistan for the first time. Came back for about a year, deployed to Afghanistan again, came back and started my exit process. So I was at Fort Lewis the whole time, just back and forth to Afghanistan.
Wow. Now, did you have to learn other languages or just strictly English?
You don't. So a lot of HUMINTers did get the chance to go to the Defense Language Institute in California and study a foreign language full time, but it's not a requirement for us because we have security cleared translators that work with us personally every single day. You have a translator assigned to your team, so they're with you for everything. Now we definitely studied the language. That doesn't mean even those of us that didn't go to DLI in California, part of our daily training, we would brush up on the language. We would look at, how do specific words look, or how do specific words sound in the language, military specific words, like rifle, bomb, truck, things like that. You learn specific words. You try to learn how to say like, hello, how are you? My name is whatever, little conversational things, because when you're trying to build a relationship with an Afghan specifically, being able to say a couple things in their language goes a long way. And then I noticed you pulled up a couple of pictures of me. You notice I have a beard a lot of the time over there. It's because growing a beard in their culture is very important to them. If you can't grow a beard, they think of you as like a teenager still. Like, you're not really a full grown man because you can't even grow a beard. So when I was over there, a lot of the time I was dressed like I am now, like in a polo or in Afghan clothing with a beard and a freaking hat on, like really building close relationships with them. I spent a lot of time one-on-one with Afghans, just sitting down talking, everything from the district governor to the police chief to local villagers and farmers to fellow Afghan soldiers. I mean, I was talking to a lot of Afghans all the time. I learned a lot about their culture, a lot about their land, their history. It was a very, very enlightening experience, to say the least.
Now, the guy in the picture with you, is that your interpreter, or is that just a guy from the village area?
Well, the one where I'm dressed up like an Afghan sitting next to him?
Yeah, right here.
That is Hamid. He was actually a shop owner. He wasn't my translator. He owned a little shop on my combat outpost where he would come in and sell all of us soldiers like our tobacco products and like bootleg DVDs and stuff like that, But he was just like a super good guy. I would talk to him all the time. At first, the commander asked me to interview him and do kind of like a counterintelligence screening on him because he was coming on and off base. So that was why I initially started building a relationship with him, because I wanted to make sure he wasn't a threat and he wasn't just like coming on the base to count how many soldiers we had and count how many trucks we had and things like that. So I spent a lot of time talking to him the first few weeks that I was there. Mm-hmm. And he's a really genuine guy. I mean, that was one of the first experiences where I realized, like, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm speaking to a guy. We don't even speak the same language. We're so different, but we're the same. I mean, he was a dad. He's got kids. He's just working, trying to make some money to feed his kids. He goes home at the end of the day and kicks his feet up and plays with his kids just like the rest of us. Normal guy, really, really good guy, hardworking, honest guy. And I mean, that was the first time I was like, whoa, I came over here with this defensive mindset. Like, we got to find all the threats and everyone's going to be an enemy. And then you immediately realize most of these guys are just living their life. They're just trying to pay the bills, so to speak, So that was very eye-opening. He's a really good guy. And I haven't had any communication with him since I left Afghanistan. He lives way up in the mountains where there's no technology. He probably doesn't even have radio or a cell phone, but
it's probably a good thing.
I hope he's doing well. That's for sure.
Now, I have to ask you, there's an uproar on social media, on everything else that, a lot of the SF guys and stuff are wanting to bring all the interpreters back and their families. How do you feel about that? And because obviously they ain't going to have a job here, so they're going to live off the government. It's going to be our taxpayers' dollars. How do you feel about that?
I can tell you a little bit of personal experience, I suppose. Both of my tours over there, I worked with local interpreters as well as American citizen cleared interpreters that were assigned to my team. Mm-hmm. One of my local interpreters, my first tour, I called him Jamie. He lives in America now. He made it over here. He got a visa, made it out of Afghanistan, and lives over here now.
The legal way.
Yeah. He got a visa and came over. I mean, he was very lucky to have gotten a visa because not a lot of them did. But he made it over and now he works full time. He's not living off of assistance in any way. And I don't think I'm sure if we brought every local interpreter over, it might be hard for some of them at first during the transition. That's realistic.
Yeah.
But these guys are so hardworking. They're used to waking up and working every single day from sunup to sundown just to make a little bit so they can eat and survive to the next day and then do it all over again. So I don't even think that they would necessarily be just living off of government assistance. I don't even think they would be expecting that because there is no government assistance in the Middle East. That's not even something they're culturally inclined to think about. But you have to remember that there's not a ton of them. And you have to remember that these guys were soldiers and they didn't redeploy with us. we all went back home at the end of our 9-month tour, 12-month tour, whatever. And those dudes just attached to the next unit that came in and kept fighting. Yeah. They went out on patrol with us every single day with no weapon. All they got was a vest and a helmet. And they would have to walk next to us on foot in the patrols, in the villages. If there was IEDs going off, if there was people shooting, like they just had to hunker down and hold in. And like, these are brave dudes. They did their job every single day. So the ones that are eligible to get a visa and come over here, I 100% think we should help them out, because they, for like 10, 12 years straight, a lot of these guys, we're talking years, back-to-back tours, unit after unit after unit of just fighting, of just combat. They died. There's translators that got killed in action. I mean, if they are eligible, that's what I'm saying. If they're eligible, meaning they don't have any sort of security threats or background things that are an issue, we should help them out, because they really fought their asses off with us for years.
Now, there's a security deal with it, but how do you know, I'm asking on a real level, because it's not like their government's like ours. They don't have background investigation. You know what I'm saying? You don't know.
But they were working for us. So before they could start working for us, we already collected their DNA, their fingerprints, their retina scan, everything, and ran a full investigation on them. And then keep in mind, every single time an IED goes off, a rocket goes off, we get into a firefight with someone and bodies are left behind, we collect fingerprints, DNA, we collect evidence off of everything. If any one of them ever had DNA or a fingerprint on an IED or a gun or anything, we would have found, it would have pinged, and it would have created a new situation in their background. So all I'm saying is, right, you look at their file from when they were hired, you fill out the period in between, you figure out what were they doing, where were they living, how are they spending their time from, 2010 to now or whatever. And you can do it. It's not impossible. And we have their DNA on file, and we can do criminal checks. We would go into villages, right? We would go into villages and just fingerprint anyone that we ran into contact with. We have a fingerprint and DNA database on probably half of the population of Afghanistan at this point, at least. We've been fingerprinting people there for 20 years. So yeah, you would find a lot of stuff if there was a lot of stuff to find in many situations. And it's not perfect. I get that. I worked in the industry. I know how it is. But a lot of these guys were working with U.S. forces for so long that you're not trying to figure out what they were doing for the last 10 years. You're just trying to fill in the gap from like a couple of years ago when they were still working with us to now. And what have they been doing? Have they been interacting with people who are nefarious or not? Most of the time, they were just back at home with their family trying to work to make some money to buy bread every day, So I don't think it would be too daunting of a task to fill in that gap and do the background investigations that we needed to.
Yeah. No, I didn't know, because like here, when you're born, you get damn fingerprinted. It ain't happening over there. You know what I mean? So you pretty much got your fingerprints on something from the time you're born till you die, and when you get in trouble here, you're fingerprinted, and now you got a rap sheet attached to your name. Over there, you don't. So that's my big thing is like when we first got over there, and then, you don't have to answer it, but how do they get, you're going to be my interpreter. You know what I mean? I guess you kind of answered that question. That was what I was getting at. How do they know he's not a Taliban wanting to fight us? How do they pick from these certain guys to do this job?
Well, one, obviously you have to be very well spoken and be educated to volunteer and become a translator over there, because these are Afghans, right? These are guys living in Afghanistan who came forward, and when we started looking for people who spoke English and spoke the local language, they were able to come forward and say, hey, I speak English. You don't just learn English in Afghanistan. You barely learn Arabic in Afghanistan, So they have to have come from, they were either from a family that had enough money to send them off to school somewhere, or they were connected in somehow. Maybe they were just super smart, super hardworking guys that were able to go find like internet access in the city every once in a while and study online. I mean, they already have to be outstanding individuals to be speaking fluent English in a country that no one speaks English at all, and there's no technology. So that's number one. Number two, we have basically a combat field version of a polygraph test that we put all these guys through. Counterintelligence agents screen all of them. They sit them down, they hook them up to polygraphs, And they run them through those questions. Have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? Are you associated with this? Are you associated with that? And if they fail, they fail. They don't get the job. So these are good dudes. They've been screened. They've been investigated. They're hardworking guys that are just trying to do what's right for themselves, their country, their family, and us.
Yeah. No, I was, because you know how some of them slip through the crack. I mean, we had some interpreters in Iraq that, every time we come back off the mission, there's rounds landing on us. It's like, what the hell's going on here? And obviously they
Definitely.
found out that, you know what I mean? So, no, I'm glad you,
I get that. And you know what? I have peers and who have mixed views too. I don't think it's a situation that is cut and dry. Everyone should feel the same way about it. That's okay. I get that there's going to be some mixed feelings because a lot of us were over there in really hard situations at different times. And when you go through really hard, violent situations like that, and you're in combat and guys lose their lives, people get hurt, sometimes there is you might just be mad about that forever. And you might never want to trust these guys again. And that's okay. It's trauma. It's part of healing. I think it's normal to feel that way. But I just try I try to keep an open mind. Some of these guys I feel are just trying to get a better situation for themselves. And, they probably really worked really genuinely hard with US forces. The interpreters and translators that I worked with, all but maybe one or two were very hardworking, honest guys. I would wish nothing but the best for them and would want them all over here. So I think it's not an easy situation to say, they all deserve to come, they don't deserve to come. But I would say that it's worth putting some effort into and talking to those guys that are over there, and worth screening through them again, because some of them definitely deserve some help for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of cleared that, man, because you exactly hit on how I feel and have felt for a long time. You see your buddies getting messed up. I had an evil discrepancy towards them guys, you know what I mean? And I try not to let it get to me, but everyone I see, I'm like, you know what I'm thinking. I don't want to say it over the air, but
I get it. Man, people are frustrated, and I think it's part of healing from trauma, and the rough part is that a lot of soldiers, when you're deployed, whether it was Iraq, Afghanistan, when you come into contact with someone as a combat soldier, most of the time, the person you're coming into contact with is an enemy combatant in a very violent, stressful situation, right? And other than that, you don't really interact with the general population too much besides just walking through their village. Only someone like me, intelligence, actually goes through and talks to all different types of Afghans, the civilians, the leaders in the village, the children, all these different people, and Taliban fighters too. I would sit down and have conversations with captured Taliban fighters for hours. I had people that were reporting information that worked with the Taliban, and we would have perfectly civil conversations. And even in building those relationships, I learned most of these Afghans are not concerned with the political ups and downs, and they don't care about us being there, right? They're just trying to live their life. They're just trying to raise their kids, not starve to death, have some clothes for the winter. They're really not interested in being involved in the fight. But when you only interact with the fighters, the bad ones, then you start to think everyone in this country hates us, everyone's trying to kill us, all these things that aren't actually true. You're just only getting 10% of the population in your interaction. So I totally sympathize with how you and many other veterans feel, where you're frustrated, or maybe you don't trust these people, or you're just kind of mad about how things went over there. I'm mad about how things went over there too, but I can say that a lot of Afghans feel the same way that we do and sympathize with us. And we're very kind to a lot of the soldiers, myself included, over there. When I was walking through villages, there was women and children would come out and be giving us tea, like, do you need anything, snacks, bread, whatever. And they were super kind to us because they knew that we weren't there to mess up their day. We weren't there to hurt them. We were just trying to hold it down and secure the area, And obviously it wasn't always that easy. It was a complex situation. So it's frustrating. It's okay to have mixed feelings, I think. We're all in our early 20s, and we're trying to hold, and we're expected to secure an entire geographical area in a country that we've never even been to before. And we're the ones in charge of the security presence. That's a complex situation. Of course, things are going to get out of hand sometimes. Yeah. So I think it's normal for us to have those mixed emotions.
During interrogation, did you ever sit with any real HVTs? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Can you name any of the names, or is it
I
classified? Or
can't. No, I can't do that. But I can give you some stories, I guess.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
My second tour over there, I was meeting pretty frequently and sitting down with a local.
For the viewers who don't know what HVT is, it's high value targets.
There you go. Yep.
Sorry about that.
And you're good. I would sit down pretty regularly and talk to this local Taliban commander who had a couple dozen fighters. Basically, he was like the equivalent of like a platoon leader in the army, right? It was really interesting getting his perspective on the war, military service, being a military leader, right? I would ask him things like that. How do you lead your troops? What's your leadership style? Things like that. Because even though we're both very different people and we have very different viewpoints, at the end of the day, that it was almost a way to build respect. Like, this is how we can come eye to eye, is let's talk like we're both military leaders. You have your troops, I have mine. Let's talk about those styles. And also, like, how does he feel about the war? And, he would talk to me about how many of his fighters, we give them all the label Taliban. They're all Taliban. In a way, that's true. But a lot of them are just the guys from the local area who are tired of their home being occupied by a foreign force. So they're not like these well-trained super soldiers that come from a training camp in Pakistan. Like, most of the dudes are just like the local guys who volunteered to be the militia. And there's like one or two actually trained Taliban commander guys like this LT who run the force. But most of them are just volunteer militia from the village that you might even be in. Right. So they're a lot of them are just kind of like I described. They're like, this is my home. We've got these giant trucks, our armored vehicles rolling through their farmland all the time, tearing up their fields, taking up their whole streets, because their streets are built for like donkey carts and little tiny Toyota Corollas. Our trucks take up the whole thing. We're always in their way. They get frustrated. Is that a reason to attack us and kill us? I don't think so. But sometimes I would almost understand. I'd be talking to him and I would be like, I get it. If I was back at home in America and there was some foreign country's giant trucks rolling through my yard all the time and scaring my kids, like, I'd be pissed too. I would probably, after years, after 5, 6, 10, 15 years of this going on, maybe, I would want to fight back too. So sometimes I would get it. But when you're fighting each other, it's obviously hard. You can't trust each other completely. You can't really be friends. But it was interesting to learn their perspective. A lot of them didn't really hate America, so to speak. It was just like, we were the ones that were there. So they fought us, So it was kind of eye-opening. I think the media doesn't always convey that accurately in the news,
Oh, 100%.
A lot of people watching the war from back home were probably thinking that we're over there fighting this huge, well-trained force of Taliban commandos, but like, that's not the case. A lot of them were just the militia in the local area trying to get us to leave.
What was the average? What is it? Day by day you spend with these people, hour by hour? What's the longest time period you focused on one individual?
Like one single interview?
Yeah. To get information out. Probably
like 6 hours or something. And honestly, that's not even like, I knew guys that did like 12 to 18 hour long marathon sessions to just like break dudes down. I probably never went over 6 hours straight without a break. But I knew some interrogators that went on some pretty high level missions, and they talked about like 12 plus 18 plus hours. Like, and sometimes they'll do something where maybe one interrogator's in there for like 6 hours, and then another interrogator kind of like comes in and tags him out so that he can go take a break, because your mind gets really tired after holding a conversation and focusing on what's going on for that long. It's like driving. Imagine, like, you were in NASCAR. So imagine a NASCAR driver after 6 hours of racing straight without a break. Like, their brain would be exhausted from focusing so much on what they have to do every second of every minute. It's the same way in an interrogation. Your brain is so on because you're thinking about what they're telling you, what you have to say next, the information that you're receiving, the information you need to receive. So how do I get the conversation to get to that point so I can ask those questions? You're balancing so much in your brain that after a few hours, you're just like, you're exhausted. You're like, no one talk to me. I'm going to go lock myself in a dark room and turn the lights off and just lay down for an hour, you know?
I'll be honest with you, my brain's already scrambled listening to that right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine.
It's a very interesting job. I loved it though.
How many tours you do over there?
2 tours, 2 9-monthers.
So you got to just dress in civilians and kind of like
some of the time. I would never go out on patrol like in Afghan clothes or in civilian clothes, because when you're all marching in a line, the one guy that stands out, they're going to think that he might be the most important one out there, you know? And even towards my first deployment, I had a beard the whole time. And in my second deployment, I had a beard like half the time. But then we kind of started realizing that if you're the one, you know, if you're on a special forces team, the whole special forces team might have a beard, right? Yeah. So then you all look the same. But I was going out with all different units. I would go out with soldiers from the Czech Republic, the Georgian Army, Marines, the 101st. I was going out with all different units all the time. So sometimes I would be the only jackass with a beard in the formation. And then you stand out. You know, maybe if a sniper is looking at you and they go looking at everyone, oh, there's one dude with a beard. Maybe he's like the special forces guy that's advising them today. Let's pick that guy first. So after a while, we actually all shaved our faces and just kind of blended in as much as possible, because our schedule was crazy. We were on patrol. One of us on my team was on patrol every single day. And if you weren't on patrol that day, you were doing interrogations and meetings and analysis. So we were working 20-hour days every single day, 7 days a week for months, no days off, at least 20-hour days. A lot of the time you might start your day at 1 a.m. because you have to be out on mission at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. And then you're out on mission all day for 24 hours straight or something. You come back, you have to, you know, clean your truck, clean your weapon, refuel, everything. Then you have to do your storyboard for your mission. I mean, it was just, you lose track of time because you're just doing something constantly. The days turn into a blur.
Yeah, it's the same with the conventional army when you're doing, you know, patrol set, QRF, your days fly by. But
long hours,
I remember a couple times we had tower guard and I literally wanted to shoot myself. It sucked so bad. I'm being honest with you. Yes. I hated it.
I literally slept in a pile of garbage once for an hour because it was the only thing I had to lay down on, and I was so tired.
Plus, then I don't know how it is, you know, the food when it finally come to you, the flies are flying away with your French fries and stuff.
You know what? I would honestly eat with Afghans a lot. I ate a ton of Afghan food, and now I love Afghan food. It is so good. Yes.
Like, what's your favorite dish, or can you even pronounce it?
They had, oh man. Yeah, I know. That's the one. Is how do I remember the terms? I think it was Bulani. Bulani is like this thin stuffed bread. So imagine like a flatbread. You know, like I'm sure, right? You know the flatbread from Iraq, right? They're typical bread. Middle Eastern flatbread, but it's stuffed with like potatoes and spices and herbs and stuff, and it's really, really good. And that was amazing. You could get stacks of it for like $1 from dudes on the street. They just wrap it in newspaper all greasy and give it to you for like $1. You'd have a huge stack of them, and I just like run back. It was amazing. It was so good. Yeah, I loved Afghan food. Honestly, I would eat Afghan food a lot. It was yummy.
That's funny because a lot of Iraqis tried to offer me food, but in my mindset over there, I just looked at everybody as not good. You know what I mean? And I hate that now. But I just got that one track mind, man. I can't look away from that. You know, if you look like that, you're a threat to me, and don't want to be around you. You know what I mean? I'm putting you in my crosshairs at all times, and I can't help it. You know, and it sounds
well, I don't think you should be hard on yourself about it. You were a product of your environment, really. You know, soldiers are trained to be defensive at all times, and because that's ultimately how we convince ourselves, if I can be defensive at all times, then I should come home alive. I should survive. Right.
Yeah.
And think about how hard that is on your brain to live like that every day for months and months and months. So you can't, I mean, we all as soldiers, I think, have to learn to forgive ourselves a little bit and be okay with how we're feeling, how angry we were or are, and accept that our behavior when we were deployed or even in the years following our deployment, maybe even still to this day, is not representative of who we are. You shouldn't judge yourself as a person based off of what you did overseas or how you've coped with what you did overseas, because we were put in impossible situations and told to figure it out, so it's okay to be mad.
Yeah, even today, I'll be riding or I'm in a parking lot and I see a woman wearing the whole thing, and my eyebrow goes up, and I'm kind of watching. But I've kind of, I wouldn't say let my guard down, but I've tried to not look at them like that anymore. It's just hard not to.
Maybe
But
that's just the first step. Yeah.
uh, so like say you're 9 months and you're working on a dude, trying to interrogate him, and then boom, your 9 months is over. Is that not like what the hell? I did all this work on this dude. Now I got to leave tomorrow.
100%. That is exactly how it feels, because you build these relationships for months. You build relationships with these guys, and then you leave, and you have no idea what happens.
Really, they don't even tell you.
No, you turn over all your assets to the next team that's replacing you, and you get them briefed up on everything they need to know. And then sometimes you'll even do a warm introduction where you introduce that person to the Afghan that you're talking to, and you do a warm handover. Hey, this is the new guy you're going to be talking to, kind of a deal. And then you go home. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, you never look back. It's really crazy. You'll spend every single day building this relationship with someone. You get to know everything about them. And then you never hear from them again. You leave. And I think about some of the guys that I talk to over there every day, because we were building meaningful relationships and we were working on really important information, that was definitely saving lives and impacting the war effort. But then your time comes and you go home, and that's it. I never found out, you never find out what happens.
Yeah. Was there any guys you interrogated that gave out some really key information that actually saved some soldiers' lives or a company?
Absolutely. Yeah. There was, there was guys who successfully took American lives through like IED attacks and stuff. Yeah. And then we were able to go and find them and get them off the streets, And then there was other times that we had information about this is something that's going to happen, next week they're going to do this attack, and we were able to prevent it. Vehicular bombs, there was 2 situations where I found out about cars that had been converted into VBIDs, and we were able to stop those attacks. There was times that we were able to find caches of explosives and weapons, and we were able to go and destroy them and get them out of there before they were able to be put to use. Things like that were very meaningful, very, very meaningful, because you're making an impact on the soldiers around you. My first time over there, the big emphasis was finding Bo Bergdahl. I was in the area of Afghanistan that he disappeared from, so it was a big, big collection priority in my area. And I was actually even in villages talking to, and this is like way up in the mountains, like 11,000 feet altitude in these mountain villages where they didn't even know who we were. When we came into the village, some of the elders would be like, are you Russians? Are you American? Who are you? They didn't know anything. And they would tell me like, oh yeah, when they captured that American soldier, they brought him here to this village. He was staying in that house over there. They kept him tied up for a while, and then they took him somewhere else. It was a real thing in my area where we were actively collecting information on that. And I can't go too far into detail about what I was working on that project, but I did collect some pretty important information about Bo Bergdahl's situation. So that was pretty important to me as well.
No, that's awesome, man. That is. I told everybody this guy coming on's got a crazy story, and you do, man. So that probably answered my next question. What was your biggest accomplishment you feel while doing your job?
I would say after being able to collect some pretty meaningful information in regards to the Bergdahl mission, my next most proudest accomplishment would probably be my second deployment. I found a we were searching this compound. It was kind of crazy how it all worked out. We were on patrol, and this other patrol radioed us because they knew that my team was on that convoy, and they were like, "Hey, we found casings of rockets over here outside of this house, like this, the casing that a rocket leaves behind, like the empty tube."
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "We found this pile of casings over here by this house. Why don't you guys come over here, search it, see if you guys find anything, question the people inside, all that good stuff." So me and my team go over there. We see the casings, we check them out. They're like literally up against the wall of this big compound. So we're like, let's figure out who lives in this compound. So we knock on the gate. A caretaker comes out. We start talking to this guy. He's this older guy. And he's acting real skittish. I mean, he's like really nervous. He's not wanting to talk to us. I ask him what his name is. He tells me a name. I don't remember what name he told me, but it wasn't his name, because then I searched him. I started going through his pockets, and I found an ID in his pocket with a totally different name on it. So then I started really grilling him and questioning him and digging into what's going on. Why did he lie to me about his name? Why is he acting so sketchy? And so we go into his compound and we start searching. And it's a big, like maybe 50 meters square, right, with a house inside. Over in one of the corners, there was this big pile of branches, like pine tree branches. And it was kind of weird because it was the only green thing in the whole compound. It was dirt walls, dirt floor, dirt everything, but he's got this big pile of pine tree branches. So I go over and I start like flipping branches and moving the pile out of the way. And I found a trap door in the ground underneath that pile of branches. So we busted open that trap door. There's a ladder going down into a room down there. So I climbed down there. I found another door underground. I was down about 10 feet underground. I found another door down there, busted the lock off of it. And in that room down underground was tons of explosives, TNT, det cord, freaking just ammonium nitrate fertilizer, like crazy amounts of stuff. And we pulled it all out and control deaded it in a field outside, like blew it all up. And it was enough to make multiple 100-pound IEDs for sure.
Ugh.
So we took a lot of stuff off the battlefield that day. And that was a very good feeling, because that was like 30 days after we had just lost an entire truck to like a 150 pounder. So it felt good to get it off the field,
Yeah. People don't, I try to, a lot of civilians ask me, cause we encountered a lot of VBIDs, a lot of IEDs. And they asked me, what was an IED like? I'm like, not everyone was the same. Some were bigger, some were smaller, but I will never forget any of them. They were the concussion from them were insane.
Exactly. That's the number one thing that whenever anyone asks me what it's like, I'm like, watching movies and playing video games, you don't realize how loud it is. Like the force of a real explosion is just so loud. That was something that's always stuck with me.
Yep.
Is that boom,
Yeah,
and
I still jump from that.
What I hated my first time over there? My bunk was right near our cops' mortar pit, and they would fucking shoot mortars. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this. Sorry.
Yeah, dude, it's open, man.
They would shoot mortars off in the middle of the night while we were sleeping with no warning, like 120s. They were shooting the 120 off at like 1 a.m. And I was literally like 30 meters from this freaking mortar pit. It was like one HESCO barrier between my stupid bunk and this mortar thing. So they would be like, boom, and it would wake me up out of my sleep and my heart would be pounding. I was like, what the fuck? Give us a warning, man. Like, yeah. I hated that. I hated that feeling of getting startled awake.
Yeah. We were at Camp Danger, Fob Danger, which was Saddam's hometown in Tikrit. And then we moved to, Remagen. And we stayed in 50-man big tents. You know what I mean? They were the GP larges and sucked so bad. But they had, I think they're called howitzers. They would go off in the middle of the night. And dude, the first time I heard that damn thing go off, I bet I about jumped out of the top of that tent, man. I swear.
It's like insane. Such a horrible way to be awoken in the night.
It was, but after a while you get used to it. Well, there goes the damn howitzer again. Jesus. Right.
You have your mini heart attack, then you go back to sleep.
Getting back to what we were talking about. So you stayed in for 6 years. What made you get out, man? Because you had a pretty
Um,
cool damn job, you know.
I did love it, honestly, but after my second tour, I was having a lot of physical injuries and issues. I had like a bulging disc in my lower spine from falling off the top of a Mat V the first time I was over there.
What's a Mat V?
Oh, that's true. You guys didn't use Mat Vs in Iraq. It's the
Mm-mm.
trucks that we drive in, those big ass armored trucks that maybe you've seen them in pictures and stuff, but it's like just a different. It was basically all the Humvees and Strikers that were getting blown to pieces in Iraq. They realized like if a Humvee and a Striker have flat bottoms, let me see, move my hands. If you make the bottom a V shape, it deflects the blast energy out
Yeah.
from under the bottom of the vehicle. So they redesigned these whole new Oshkosh did it. They redesigned these whole new vehicles called MRAPs and MATVs. They're these like a giant Humvee on steroids, double armored and like 15 feet tall, you know? So that's what we would roll around in. They were a little bit more resistant. They were more off-road capable and more resistant to blasts.
Dude, you shit your pants if you knew what I rolled around. We called them bass boat. You remember the old first Sergeant Humvees, single cab?
With the cloth side?
Yeah, dude. We had the doors were a metal piece of somebody damn. It looked like they, I don't know what you call it. They made these metal ass doors, and that's what we hung on the side. We had sandbags in the floorboard, and if you were gunning, you were held in by a damn cargo strap. And I'm not even kidding you. On a 50 cal, 240, and literally, if you look down between your legs, you can see the road behind you. Behind you, just like literally, if you. That's all it was holding you in, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, you can't go through blasts like that. That was
Hell no.
not fair. Not
I
fair to
don't,
us.
dude. I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know how any of us made it home from that shit. Just lucky
Yeah.
God, man. It's crazy. But
Well,
back to
I
your.
think that's why so many veterans we carry a lot of anger, you know?
Oh,
'Cause
huge.
we went through all that crap when we were young, super young. You think about I was in from 19 to 25,
Yep.
and most of my peers, all the guys in my platoon that were doing the same shit as me to the left and right of me, we were all in the same age range, I mean, if someone was older than 25 in the platoon, they were one of the older guys. They were the freaking old guy you know what I mean? Everyone was like 21, 22, 23, 19, 20.
Yeah.
And we were over there in ridiculous situations with ridiculous amounts of responsibility every single day. You come home, years go by, you think about guys that didn't make it.
Yep.
And I'm only 30 now, right?
Yep.
But as the years go by, you think, damn, like every year that goes by, I'm still living my life. And all those young ass guys are still not here. They're never, and it makes me mad. And I think that's probably why we all get mad is you think like, why the fuck did we have to go through that and have we have permanent repercussions for a temporary situation.
Yeah.
And that's
It's funny.
frustrating.
It's funny you say that because I got a bunch of buddies that are battling, some have suicidal thoughts, some dealing with severe PTSD. I mean, I deal with it myself. Some people don't deal with it like others, but
Yeah.
on a constant basis, I had one of my buddies call me yesterday and was kind of upset, crying, and he just lost his father, and he told me, man, I don't feel like living anymore. I'm like, dude, I talked him out of it, thank God. And I would say his name, but I don't want to,
Oh, I get it.
But no, he's a good friend of mine. And I had two other buddies that I check in all the time on too. So if there's a veteran listening, what would you say to them that some words of encouragement, to bring their spirit up, because that's pretty much why I started this podcast.
Yeah.
To share other guys' story, but to also, bring some light on some guys that are listening that are, feeling these struggles and just not doing so well. What would be some words of encouragement for them?
Well, I think I would say this. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel frustrated and to have emotions that you don't maybe know how to process. I definitely carry a lot of that. I'm sure a lot of us do. The war in Iraq and Afghanistan, they were crazy, for years. And there was a lot of violent situations, frustrating situations, things that we got put into based off of generals' decisions that none of us had any choice, and we were just expected to fight it out and survive. And so it's okay to be mad about that. And it's okay to be sad about soldiers that we lost over there. That is sad, and it's okay to miss them. But to making a permanent decision, taking our lives, hurting ourselves, drinking ourselves, into depression for years after we get out of the Army because we can't move forward, I don't think that is what we should do to honor all of our brothers and sisters that didn't make it home, Yeah. Like, we made it home. We went through all the bullshit over there and we came home. So we might as well try to live a good life. We might as well try to be happy. And I know it's not easy, right? You're not going to be happy every day. We're going to wake up sometimes and be sad, but remind yourself that that's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. That's processing. That's part of healing. And there's thousands of us, right? The veteran community is strong right now because we were growing in force for years and years and years. So now there's a lot of us. Find a peer network. I mean, we have a small network right here, just because of people who watch this show, people who know this show, people who have been on the show and know you, Alan. I'm always open to talk to any veterans that are feeling this way, feeling any type of way, because I'm one of them. I feel it all the time. You just have to find, for me personally, I find little things to do whenever I'm feeling any type of way to clear my head. Maybe I go for a bike ride, maybe I go in my garage. I have a punching bag out there. I hit the bag for a little bit. Sometimes maybe you just need to, play with your kids, go for a walk, play a video game, or do nothing. Go sit in a room by yourself, play some music, and just think about life for a little bit. Like, it's okay to turn everything off. I don't think there's one right way to cope with it because we're all different, but we all have similar experiences because we're all veterans and we were all over there, So
yeah,
networking, I think, is a big way for us to stay healthy.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think they feel like they're, from what I've gathered and what I've been told is, a lot of them had to leave the military not on their own term because of being injured, and now they feel worthless, not a part of anything. And it's like, what do you tell that guy that didn't want to get out but has to get out because he's getting medically retired? And I tell him just keep fighting.
That's exactly right. I was missing that sense of purpose real hard for the last few years. I just couldn't find it because, especially deployed in my job, I was directly affecting the battle space every day. I was collecting or disseminating information that was affecting operations every day. I made a real impact. And then you come home, you get out, you move on to some other job where you're just like clocking in and out every day, making a paycheck. It's not the same. You miss that. So if you got out and you're feeling that way, where you're missing service, you got to find a way to get that sense of purpose back, whether it's in your own community, working with other veterans, working with kids, working with underprivileged families, volunteering. I do some volunteering. I have an investigation background, which is a whole nother story. But after I got out of the Army, for the first couple of years, I was working as an investigator for the federal government. And so I've been helping with a volunteer organization of all veterans called Vets for Child Rescue. Mm-hmm. And so it's a group of former veterans, special operators, law enforcement, things like that, who have experience in it, doing what we can in our local communities to combat child trafficking, human trafficking, sexual abuse against children, and things like that. So little ways like that to feel like, I have a mission in my community. There is something for me and my skills to directly contribute. Find ways to engage, I mean, when we were in the Army, most of us, we were doing things that were on a global scale. Our actions were broadcast on the news all around the world because we were fighting a war. Now we're back home. We're in our local communities, So accept that you don't always have to be changing the world every day. Start in your local community, find a way to make an impact in the town that you live in. whether it's with veterans or otherwise, another demographic group. I love working with kids. I love working with veterans. It's a good, for me personally, working with Vets for Child Rescue is a cool way for me to learn more skills and stay active and do something good in the state that I live in. There's a lot of other organizations like that and different organizations, and even just making friends with other veterans, starting a veteran group that gets together for beers every Thursday or something, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a good way. It's a good sense of purpose.
Absolutely. I agree, man. So speaking of when you got out and you started your next career, you hit on it just a little bit and I was going to get to it. What were you actually doing?
So I was a special investigator for the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency for about pretty much up until COVID last year. From when I got out, it was like 3.5 years, 4 years almost. And basically what I did was I was traveling around the western half of the United States doing national security investigations and security clearance background investigations for all different people, like federal agents like ATF and DEA to research scientists at national laboratories that had like top secret clearances and were working on scientific projects, and then all the way down to like special forces guys and even other intelligence collectors in active duty military service who needed their top secret clearances investigated. So I was traveling a lot. I was on the road a lot. It was a lot of interviewing, thousands and thousands of hours of sitting down and interviewing people, because you not only have to interview the person who's being investigated, but you have to interview their boss, their peers, their teachers, their neighbors, their friends. You interview so many people. So I was traveling a lot and doing a lot of interviews, but it was a cool job. I learned a lot. I met a lot of interesting people. I felt like I was, making an impact back home in my country, not in the military anymore. So it was very meaningful. I appreciated it.
And why'd you step away from it? Just because of COVID? Did you get furloughed?
Yeah.
Or?
So I was on a contract basis. So they would send me to different places as a contractor to go do this here, interview this guy here, do this. But once COVID hit, we couldn't really do face-to-face interviews. They weren't scheduling, for anyone to go and meet up with each other. It kind of threw everything off. So I ended up finding a new path and new skills, kind of taking my career in a whole different direction. But the investigation gig was good. I mean, it was fun. I definitely learned a lot. I think it made me a better investigator. I learned a lot of kind of civilian side skills that I didn't necessarily know in the Army. So it was a good experience. I enjoyed it.
Sounds like a damn good time. I think probably one of my damn background checks might have went 2 years or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Like one of the coolest interviews I did, I was down in San Antonio and I got to go to on the Air Force, there's a few bases in there's like 6 bases in San Antonio and around San Antonio, but there's an Air Force base there in San Antonio where they have a maintenance wing owned by Boeing, which is dedicated to the maintenance of what is it? The plane that the president flies on. Now my
Air Force One.
Air Force One. I wanted to call it Air Force 6. I was like, I know it's not Air Force 6. That's stupid. Air Force One, duh. How could I forget this? My brain is not on today. But that was one of the wings where they maintain and do repairs to Air Force One. And I had to go interview and do the background investigation for the director of operations for that wing down there. So they call him like the executive. It's like the executive operations director or something like that. He was a super nice guy, super inviting, but he had lots of really cool, like historic memorabilia in his office. He had a bunch of these little, like mini boxes of M&Ms from when Barack Obama was president. And they had like the presidential seal and Obama's like signature on the box. And he was like, oh yeah, it was because Obama and his kids, like they really like M&Ms. So he asked that there was always M&Ms stocked on Air Force One. So he had a bunch of these like little custom boxes of presidential M&Ms. And he had like all these photos with different presidents from being on Air Force One. And it was really cool. He was a super interesting guy to meet. He showed me around kind of the wing there where they do all the repairs to the plane. And it was very cool. I met a lot of really interesting people in the government doing that job, and a lot of really amazing soldiers too. I met do you remember when there was a terrorist attack at the airport in Belgium, in Brussels?
What year was that? Do you remember?
It must have been around 2015, I think.
Oh no, dude, I was knee deep in NASCAR at that time, not being Aryan or nothing, but that
It
year
was
was
around 2015, 2016, I want to say, time frame. So basically a group of insurgents went into the international airport in Belgium, in Brussels, and they had like machine guns and suicide vests on, and they started shooting people and then blowing themselves up in the airport.
holy shit.
They killed a lot of people. And it was a terrible situation. And I had to do the interview of an American soldier, an officer who was on leave with his wife. And he was at the airport, and he was caught right in the middle of the attack, and he lost his wife in the explosion.
Damn.
And they have like 4 or 5 kids, if I recall correctly. So now he's a single dad raising all of his kids. And that was one of the hardest interviews ever in my career, even in Afghanistan, that I've ever had to do, because we had to talk about certain things that were very painful to talk about. I mean, even to this day, like just thinking about it, I get choked up. And if that soldier, he knows who he is, if he's ever sees this, I hope he knows that my heart goes out to him. I think about him all the time. I hope his kids are doing good. It's a horrible situation to get caught up in, so that was very powerful. It was a really hard one to make it through. So things like that, no training can prepare you for that. You just kind of have to be as empathetic and sympathetic as possible, and give a lot of space to that person to speak and talk about how they're feeling. It was a hard one.
Yeah, I can tell the emotion in you, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it. Yeah, I get heated a lot. I don't watch the news. A lot of people bug me about it, but I do not watch the news because it just drives me. I wouldn't have a TV in my house if I watched it. You know what I mean? I'd be
Yeah,
putting
I
my
don't
head
watch
through
the
it.
news either. I get you.
So I try to put up that wall to not hear all the stupidness going on. You know what I mean? And just try to live my life. But people inform me of the stupidity going on. But no, especially 2015, 2016, I had a lot going on. I was doing 3 series and racing, and not trying to
That's
get into my
awesome.
story. But
Oh,
I was at a different level in my life than I am now. You know what I mean? I was
yeah.
drinking a lot then, and just living the life that I dreamed of. And so I kind of, the news was the last thing on my radar. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
racing, beer, and my family. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds wild.
Oh, it was a good time. But so how long did you do that for? 3 years, you said?
It was about almost 4 years.
And then COVID hit, and how
COVID hit, and I had to readjust. So moving on to newer things, I've been kind of working on myself as an entrepreneur.
cool,
And I'm working in sales essentially now. It's a totally different career path than what I ever expected. But being in the background of being an interviewer, if you will, I talk a lot to people. I don't
Sound like
mind.
Air Force One took off in your background.
Say that again.
Sound like Air Force One took off behind you.
Oh, did you pick that up? Can you hear that?
Oh yeah, it was.
I live near Fort Lewis, so you can always hear planes and helicopters going by.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm by my window right now. I guess you can hear that.
No, you're fine, man. I just had to bring it up.
No, you're good. So yeah, after COVID hit, I had to work on a new career path. But I've been kind of working on myself as an entrepreneur for a few years. When I got out of the Army, I've started a couple business licenses, and my wife and I have done a couple different projects working on like brand building and sales and product development, things like that. And so now I'm working as a sales director, doing nationwide distribution of wholesale CBD ingredients and products. So I work for a lab and a group of farmers that grow and produce CBD products and hemp. And I distribute them nationwide. I have really great relationships with producers and processors all across the country that have big facilities where they make all of your CBD gummies and tinctures and muscle rubs and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And I supply them a lot of their wholesale ingredients that they need to make those products.
that's cool because I was a part with. Well, they still kind of support me. I mentioned them. Sometimes I forget. I'm very bad at that. Fab CBD. They sent me a bunch of their product. I used it, and it was amazing.
Good.
There's no THC in it for people that think that it's Marijuana, it's not. And
Right.
even it's not this one. It's this one is it has what you call it in it. Damn, I just lost the train of thought.
The coffee is a
Yeah,
CBD.
it has CBD in it, and it's
Oh,
actually really good. It's Snickerdoodle. Put a little
ooh,
sugar, a little creamer in
mhm.
there. Dude, I'm serious. It tastes like a cookie. It's amazing coffee.
Ooh. I'm gonna have to get
And
some of that.
I don't even drink coffee with sugar and stuff, but my mom introduced me to it, and I just had a little
Right.
sip, and I'm like, it really does taste like a cookie. It's amazing. So throwing a little shout out for them again. So
No, honestly, I'm a big advocate to all of the veterans and peers that I have about using more natural medicines,
mhm.
because any one of us that has injuries or illnesses related to deployment or military service, I'm sure we all have a huge prescription list from the VA that's as
Oh
long as
my
our
God.
arm, and it's painkillers and sleep medicine and antidepressants, uppers and downers and muscle relaxants. They give you anything you want, right? But
Yep.
all that stuff that at least for me, I thought it was just masking the symptoms. It wasn't actually making anything better. And half the time I'd have really weird physical reactions to the medicine that they're giving me. I'm taking pills that make my body do crazy things. I was having night sweats and it was just like ridiculous. So I started using cannabinoid based medicines like CBD. And there's the big thing right now that I work in this industry professionally, one of the biggest things I can convey to people is that most people in the public, they only know about THC and CBD, right? THC is the one that gets you stoned. CBD is the one that doesn't get you stoned. Those are two cannabinoids, right? There are over 100 cannabinoids in the plant that each specifically do something medicinal in your body. So you can take THC out of the equation. You can even take CBD out of the equation completely and have a product that has none of them. No CBD, no THC, but is packed with other cannabinoids that do really, really powerful medicinal work in your body. There's cannabinoids. There's the one called CBG. CBG is the first cannabinoid that the plant produces. If you take high levels of CBG, which you can get now, we have been producing CBG products for a while. CBG is super powerful. It has really powerful anti-inflammatory and pain-reducing effects in your body, anti-anxiety. It has similar effects to CBD, but it's really, really powerful. And then another one of my favorites that I've been advocating about because I'm developing a product for sleep with it is called CBN, as in November. CBN is the cannabinoid that makes you sleepy. People think that like if you smoke a joint, it's the THC that makes you sleepy, right? THC doesn't really make you sleepy. It has a mild sedative effect to it, but it's actually CBN. CBN is what makes you sleepy. So if you concentrate CBN, it's non-toxic, it's non-addictive. You can't overdose on it, right? So if you concentrate CBN and you put it with a little bit of CBD oil, maybe a little bit of melatonin in there, some lavender oil, that's a sleeping pill right there that is going to knock you out for 8 hours. You're going to have the most restful sleep ever. And it's non-addictive, non-toxic. You can't overdose on it. It's not going to hurt you in any way. You can take it every day. It'd be great for you. These are the types of medicines that I'm focused on developing for veterans and other people like us that have trauma or have issues, pains, whatever, because this is a safer alternative. This is something that's going to help us heal and get stronger and grow up and be better and not have to deal about, taking antidepressants and freaking NyQuil and stuff every night. I mean, forget all that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was always like, I ain't taking that crap, and then I was taking some of this because I have a terrible sleep ethic and I just cannot sleep. So I went to the VA and sure enough, they gave me, I don't remember what it was, but dude, I'll tell you the dreams I was having was some weird shit.
Exactly.
And it
Exactly.
scared the shit out of me actually. And then I got with that Fab CBD and they have the nighttime gummies and it's
Yep.
lavender. And dude,
Yep.
I'll tell you, it's the best sleep I ever had in my life.
Absolutely.
The best sleep I've ever had. And now I'm out of them and I'm like back to sleeping shitty again.
Hey, well, Fab CBD, let's go. We need to get
Yeah,
Alan some more gummies. Come on.
exactly.
Where are we
So,
at?
yeah, that's a great product, but
I can get you some. I'm going to send you some product too, man. I'll have to hook you up with some stuff. I'll give you some stuff to try. And you'll have
yeah, man,
to
that'd be great.
take some, pass it around to some of your buddies, and let me know because that's the whole point. I want to produce some products that are, actually effective but safe.
Yeah,
And the other big thing is affordable. There's a lot of CBD companies out there that are charging a big price tag for their product. And I work in the industry. I know for a fact that it doesn't cost that much. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
yeah.
call out any brand specifically, but I will say if you're selling a 5,000 milligram tincture for like $300, like you're robbing people and you know it. So you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You should, if a 5,000 milligram tincture is something that you should, that's what I take. It's a strong tincture, but I take it multiple times a day. Take a dropper in the morning, a dropper in the afternoon, dropper at night, maybe 2 droppers at night. Hundreds of milligrams of CBD a day, because that's what helps me personally.
Yeah.
That might be, you might need more than me. You might need less than me. Everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
But you go into a CBD store and you ask for a 5,000 milligram tincture, and they're going to give you it's going to be a little bottle, like a 30 milliliter bottle, and they're going to charge you like $250 to $300 for that thing. And I'm going to tell you right now, that probably costs less than $20 to make. 17 bucks, 18 bucks. So is that fair? No. So I'm going to make my own stuff, and it's going to be affordable as hell, and it's going to be strong, and it's going to be very effective. And we'll actually get some healing done, pass it out to a bunch of veterans for free.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I totally was against it. Honestly, it has a bad stigma. That's the problem.
Of course.
Because it's made from, you know what I mean, the plant and blah, blah, blah. So everybody's like, oh, you're taking weed. And I'm like, no, actually I'm not, because I'm not high. I just feel a little better.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But I'm 100% on the nighttime gummies. Dude, I would take one, and literally I watch YouTube all the time. And this is how I'd wake up, because my phone fell out of my hand and hit me in the face. You know what I mean? I'm like, holy shit, that thing worked. You know what I mean?
Definitely. It's powerful. I think there's going to be a lot more research that can be done too. And we're going to start being able to isolate other cannabinoids and start studying how they affect the body. There's another cannabinoid. It's a similar cannabinoid to THC. It's called THCV, as in Victor. THCV is a totally different cannabinoid from normal THC that gets you stoned, right? THCV is kind of like the opposite of normal THC. So normal THC gives you the munchies, right? Gets you, it kind of messes with your perception. Some people say that THC can give them anxiety a little bit, right? THCV actually curbs your appetite. It reduces your hunger. It increases your body's metabolism so that you burn more calories, and it reduces anxiety. Most people don't even know that THCV exists. You can now concentrate THCV. I'm thinking about how can we implement this in a way for people who are very health conscious, right? A lot of soldiers, we stay very fit. We don't want to get super stoned and then have the munchies and eat a bunch of junk food and be super sluggish, right? You want something that's going to decrease your anxiety, give you a little bit of an uplifting feeling, but also increase your metabolism and decrease that snacking kind of feeling. Like, that's an awesome product right there. There's a lot of medicinal value to that.
Yeah,
but it comes down to consumer education. We have to start talking about this stuff as a community, encouraging, getting rid of that stigma that you talked about, telling other veterans, hey man, look, if it's something that helps you feel healthy and feel your best on a day-to-day basis, then how is that bad? How is that? Why would there be a stigma about that? If you don't like the way you feel taking those dozens of pills that the VA gives you, then don't. Find something else. Let's mix it up. Let's come up with some alternatives so that we don't have 22 a day, year after year after year,
I agree 100%. Yeah, I've learned to hold my phone a different way so I don't break my nose when I fall asleep. Holding my phone.
Right.
Yeah,
a different angle.
Well, look, man, I've really enjoyed your story. It's very unique. I haven't had somebody on like you, and I can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
Thank you very much.
If people are watching, make sure you like and subscribe, because I want to get more people on, and I've enjoyed talking to you. You got my personal number. Hit me up if you ever need me. And I hope everybody who watched it enjoyed and
thank you so much. Your story. Yeah, it was an honor to be on the show. I really appreciate you inviting me. You'll definitely be hearing from me. I'm sure we'll stay very closely in touch. Anyone watching the show, feel free to reach out to me. Any veterans, if you're ever feeling any of the things that Alan and I talked about on this episode, please reach out. You're not alone. We have a huge veteran community in this country. There's thousands and thousands of us that are all sharing similar experiences and emotions. We all need to connect. Don't be alone. Let's try to, decrease that 22 a day number and turn it around and start making the veteran community one of strength, where we're all helping each other grow. I'd love to see that. And I think this show is a great opportunity for us to take a step in that direction.
I agree, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, I got two podcasts tomorrow. I'm excited about, and man, I truly, truly, truly loved your story, man. And,
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you on, dude. Thank you so much.
You got it. We'll do it again sometime.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.